All right, come on in. So good. I can hear my son in children's church. That's always a beautiful sound. Oh, Aaron. All right, so if you look up on the screen, I've got something here. It's called busy, the enemy of your soul. At least one person agrees with that. Hopefully by the time the service is up, there'll have more people like, oh my gosh. I am slowly realizing that the more I engage in things and the more I engage in all manner of stuff, it slowly starts chipping away and fighting at the things that are most important. Let me illustrate it by saying this. What if I told you that as of tomorrow onwards, when the clock hits tonight and you go through tomorrow, you will have an additional 10 hours of your day. The day is now a 34-hour day. The sun will come up same time. After 12 o'clock, there'll be 13 o'clock, 14 o'clock. You'll get 10 more hours. And the day will actually conclude in 34 hours. How much you'll be happy? Like, wow, I got 34 hours to... Let's kind of ask the question, what would you do in the 34 hours? Would you like pick up knitting? Would you like, man, I could do so much more. I could start learning to play an instrument. I might run more. I might do some more exercise. I might do some more. Tell me some of the things you might do. Like, shout out something. What might you do if you had 34 hours? See, Kayla said she'll see more depressed people. You'd what? Watch more TV? Somebody said they'll watch more TV. What would you do? Sleep? Somebody said they'll sleep some more. They'll just do more and more things. Somebody was going to throw pottery. Do you realize that if I gave you 10 extra hours talking about all the things that you said you want to do, by the time 6 months come by, you know what you're going to say? Where does the day go? I've got 34 hours. I just can't get everything done. Where does the day go? The answer is probably you don't need more time in your day. The answer is probably along the lines of more efficiently managing what God's already given you. Right? And by Jesus' standard, he was always doing something. Jesus was always busy doing something. The Bible says he was about his Father's business. But in reality, I don't have a record of scripture where Jesus got burnt out. If you have one, let me know. There isn't a record of scripture where Jesus was doing so much he got burnt out. So he found a way to do the things that he was supposed to be doing, right? So I think Jesus had a fairly refined, what I call to-do list, and he also had a fairly refined not to-do list, right? And so he made sure he kept his not to-do list where it should be. And so I think it's important that if you're always busy, if you're always doing something and you find like there's not enough day, I would encourage you to rethink that process and actually slow down. Because I'll use the word busy, which is camp the word busy, camp the word hurry, camp the word distracted, all in that same thing. Those are all parts of the process. They are enemies of us. These things are enemies. And you ever met someone who loves to live in the chaos of their busy? If that's you, you don't have to say anything. But if you've ever met someone who they're always on a go with something, and so what'd you get done today? I don't know. I mean, listen, my parents, God bless them, they're on this thing. They're retired. They're busy, right? You ever see how retired busy people are? You ever been to a cruise with retired people? They'd be like always up and down. They're like, wow, I gotta keep up with these people, right? There's always you've ever had a situation where you're living your life and you're on vacation and your whole vacation is designed to not do stuff, right? but you end up doing stuff on your days you aren't supposed to be doing stuff on? The answer is probably you're too busy. Busy is an enemy. Hurry is an enemy. A biblical thought leader said, if you were to ask yourself, what is the most dangerous thing towards the Christian church today? You could say secular humanism. You could say the redefinition of the family. You could say who got voted. You could say who got voted out. You could have any different philosophy. But I think the most destructive thing for God's people today is hurry. It's busy. You know, there's a reason they talk a lot about walking with God and not running with God. Right? That's just a natural phrase. You know, I'm on my walk with God. Right? And sometimes, yes, you have to keep the pace up. You know, they will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. Yeah, there are times to run. But I want us to take a moment to wind it down a bit. Slow it down. Because I think in the busyness of life, in the working through the process of going and going and going, we miss the moments. And what's life? Life is really a series of moments. And if you're missing life, my wife and I were sitting on our bed talking the other day, and I said, there is a season when Aaron was from 0 to 2 that I don't remember enjoying Aaron that much. Because my heart was so anxious for things that was going on in life that I don't remember. When I see the pictures, like, oh yeah, he was that small. Oh yeah. But I can remember the anxiety of work. I can remember the anxiety of we were just starting working throughout, just leading this church, and everything that went with that. The great, I think she was a missionary, the great missionary Corrie ten Boom said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. So let's just kind of examine that, okay? So the devil doesn't make anybody sin. We pick our sin. We choose our sin, right? But let's just say that the devil has tempted you. And let's just say the devil cannot tempt you to eat vegetables. I mean, the devil cannot tempt the devil cannot tempt you to do whatever that ill is in your life. What you name the thing. And you're living for Jesus. You're working through. You and Jesus on that road. If he can't get you off that course, his next option will be to make you busy. Busyness and sin has the same effect in your spiritual life. And I wrote it down because it's a really cool quote on what it does. Busyness and sin intercept your awareness of God. Busyness and sin intercept your awareness of God. If you commit a sin, you weren't thinking about God that moment. I could assure you that. Because if you were, you wouldn't do it. Right? And as you know, we're not a sin-conscious church. We hardly even talk about the subject for the reason that we believe that your identity is stronger than any sin. But let's think about it. Let's just say you happen to commit one. You weren't thinking about Jesus at that point. And when you're busy doing anything else, what you're not doing, you ain't thinking about Jesus. He's not that point. And think about, like, you're retired, or you have a lot of free time in your day. Let's assume you have a lot of free time in your day. You have like, let's say you're on vacation or you're whatever. Have you ever said to yourself, God, where did today go? So you could actually be busy at doing nothing. That's scary to me, right? For a personality like mine that always got to get something done, that loves the fact that you could send emails on your phone, you could respond to text message, love the fact that you could do voice memos on WhatsApp, and you could say, hey, could you do that? Ray gets them for me all the time. Hey, Ray, could you do this? Thanks, man. We talk soon. The fact that we could always be working, you could always be on the go. It's a good thing in one sense, right? Because, we get to respond, and we don't get to, with all the technology, we don't have to procrastinate anymore. We don't have to put off for tomorrow the thing we could do today. I could answer that email now. On the way home, I could check my my instant message and respond to whatever's happening, right? I always could get to do something. But in the midst of all of that, we forget and we kind of lose track a little bit of our awareness of who God is. The great man of God, the monk, they called him Brother Lawrence. He talked about, as I walked across the parsonage and I saw a piece of paper on the ground, I remembered to practice the presence of God as I would go down and pick up that piece of paper. So in everything, in every area of his life, his heart was connected to practicing the presence of God. He didn't let the busyness of even going to do his natural stuff, going in the kitchen, to stop him from having his awareness of the Father, to have an awareness of God. And so busyness often and distraction often robs us. It robs us. So here's what happens. So we have X amount of things to do. And then when we have X plus 10 things to do, then we start getting in a hurry, right? And it's that hurry that starts messing with us. So check this out. So I have power. There is power in the Logitech. Okay, I'm good. So I think this is one of the reasons why busyness, hurry, distraction kind of gets in our way. It is our success metrics. So if I were to say to you, what is a successful church? What is a successful AC repairman look like? What does a successful marketer look like? What does a successful teacher look like? What does a successful civil engineer working on a government contract look like? Like, if I were to ask that question, we always create definitions that look a lot like doing. So you say, well, Andre, I don't think Encounters Church is successful because I don't see 200 people every Sunday. I don't think, your AC business is successful because you haven't hit 1 million a year. Or, sorry, he hit 1 million already. You haven't hit 2 million a year. I don't think your school teacher is successful because you had one person fail that class. That you couldn't be a good teacher because you had that one person fail the class. And oftentimes these metrics that we put in place are so far it's so far outside the range of what's normal. It forces us to create a comparison model that's so weird, right? Like it's like the model of success almost is keep up with the Joneses. You know what Dave Ramsey said? The Joneses are broke. Stop keeping up with them. Right? That BMW they have in their driveway, they're paying for it through their nose. Right? I was talking to a friend, someone this week, and I was telling about my dear friend who has been driving the same car for 25 years. But he's probably got 6 figures work in the bank just from saving, right? Just from his regular paycheck over the time. And he's like, you know what? I'd rather have my money in my bank account than sitting in my driveway. Because there's a success metric that says, hey, if you drive this, man, you must be somebody. if you wear this, you've got to be somebody. If you go if you have, how many stamps in your passport you've got? Oh, man, I was to Bora Bora a couple of years ago. Oh, man, I was up in London looking at jolly old fog. We create these metrics that are so unrealistic. You know, we were talking with Ray this morning. You know, when you look at Instagram or you look at a family photo, those pictures that you see, I call those your by faith pictures, right? Because by faith, I wish that my Instagram photos look as good as how my life look every day of the week. It's like, you ever see a family photo with a husband, wife, 3 kids, and the 3 kids are smiling, and they have this photo like, wow, what a beautiful picture. Oh, look at the puppies there. Oh, what a beautiful picture. And the mom is thinking, you know how hard it was to take that picture? That kid threw up just 30 seconds before. This other kid did that. Like, it is boy, that picture, that's our by faith picture. That's how we hope to look in our life, at least on most days of the week. But if you realize that most days of the week, you don't feel or look like your profile picture, right? My profile picture is a picture of me folding my arms like this, looking like, hey, this is my LinkedIn photo. I remember one time somebody saw my LinkedIn photo and they're like, man, that looks pretty tight. I'm like, yeah, it does. I don't feel like that half the time when I get into the office. You know, because LinkedIn is like a business network. Well, I don't feel like that. But fortunately now I actually feel a lot more like my LinkedIn photo now, right? Because I love my job. I love what I do. The job I had before, didn't really like it that much, but I pushed through and persevered. So success metrics. I want to encourage you to revisit what the metric you call success is. You know, for the homemakers, the full-time homemakers, the people that stay home full-time, you know what a success metric is? If the house has one piece of paper on the ground, something's wrong. I'm a failure in life because the laundry's not completely done. No, I never feel that way, but I know of homemakers and moms who work in the home full-time. They feel like, all right? Now, mind you, I'm saying all of this because the opposite is also not true, right? Having a pigsty for a house is not the answer, right? And we know that, right? And like, there comes a time like, man, I'm tired of stepping over that stuff. What am I doing here? You know, I'm just stepping over stuff, right? You know, who was I telling that story the other day? That my dad did this. If my dad is online listening to Daddy, I don't remember the story. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. That my dad told me to put away my laundry. I was like, yeah, Dad, I'll get to it. Good looking out. And he said, okay, once you're done with laundry, please take the laundry basket and put it back away. So I was like, okay. So I didn't put away the laundry basket one day, didn't put away the laundry basket 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. So my dad basically, he took the laundry basket and he put it in the way where I would have to either walk around it or something to get through this laundry basket. And I remember one day, I'm walking and I'm hurrying and I trip and fall over this laundry basket. And my dad was looking, he's like, you're really not going to put that away? I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot you told me to put away this laundry basket. And I tripped over said laundry basket. But that's, so the whole point of that story is there's a balance here. We're not trying to we're not trying to have a hoarder's house, but we're not trying to have Buckingham Palace at the same time. It's okay if you don't have Buckingham Palace, but we're not trying to live in a hoarder's mansion. So what's our metric here? And so part of the issue is that busy makes hurry. Some psychologists, not my wife in this case, have said there's a thing called hurry sickness, right? Hurry sickness. Let me tell you something about hurry. Have you ever been trying to go to trying to go somewhere, right? And guys, we know this one. You tell your wife, okay, we're getting ready and we're leaving at 6 o'clock. And your wife's like, yeah, for sure, I'll be ready at 6 o'clock. And 6:05 comes, and she's doing this kind of thing with something in her eye, and like, it's time for us to go, right? And 6:05, 6:10 comes, and then there's something going on with a rolly thing in the hair. What's the next thing that comes out of our mouth, guys? Hurry up. Right or wrong? Right? The next thing we say is, hurry up. And what does our wife usually respond? I'm hurrying up. I'm going as fast as I can. Right? Is that only happening to Robert's household? I'm not getting the guys are like afraid to like, yeah, that's kind of me, but I don't want to say it. I'm right next to my wife here. If I say that, I'm going to be in trouble. Jose, you can say that back there. No, Marisol can't see you. But have you ever noticed whenever you're in that zone, whenever you're in that place, and you're saying, hurry up, come on, we've got to go, let's get this going. Have you ever noticed the feelings that are inside of you that are coming up are totally contrary to everything that's written in the fruit of the Spirit? Peace. Come on, man, we got to go. Joy. I'm not happy that you're taking this long. Long suffering, well, that could have been thrown out the door a long time ago because I'm really suffering long. Gentleness, come on, we got to get out of here. Everything that is anti-God, anti the fruit of the Spirit starts coming up when we're in a hurry. Self-control, just name it, think of it all. It all happens when we're in a hurry. Hurry is the enemy of love. It's the other side of love. If you've ever been in a relationship of any kind, any relationship, if it's been any long-term relationship, it didn't happen in a hurry. You know the reason why? Have you ever heard someone say, hey, I met this girl for the first time and I'm in? What do you usually say? Uh-oh. Something's wrong there. Uh-oh. Isn't that our natural reaction? You meet someone for the first time and you're in love. I mean, I could say that about a brisket, but I did not say that about Kayla when I first met her. And speaking of brisket takes a long time. You know, when Alia's husband made that wonderful brisket for a Christmas event, he'd spent 10 hours on this thing that takes a long time. Things that take, so love, anything that's love, it takes time, it takes effort. You can't hurry up those things. And if you can't hurry it up, obviously you can't make it happen quickly. And so my hope today is that we take moments to just slow it down. Let me talk about, so we're going to do a quick little test here. I have some time here. We're going to do a quick little test. It's called the 10 symptoms of hurry sickness. And Mark John Comer kind of put this together, right? And I'm going to name about 10 of them, and you should make a count of if you've got any of them. That means you've got hurry sickness, you've got overbusy, you're distracted. Irritability, you get mad, frustrated, just annoyed too easily. Little things irk you. People have to tiptoe around you. You have this low-grade negativity. It's not really anger. So for this, why are people laughing? Am I doing an act here, a comedy act? Now, the way you diagnose this irritability, it's not really diagnosed by your coworkers, because we could always kind of hold it together with our coworkers and our bosses because we're trying to keep our jobs. The way you really diagnose this is with your spouse or your children or people close to you. If there is this ongoing low-grade irritability, check one, you might be a hurrier. You might have a little bit of hurry sickness. hypersensitivity. All it takes is one little minor comment and you've hurt all of your feelings. One grumpy email sets you off. A little turn of events throws you into an emotional funk for the entire day. Minor things quickly escalate into major emotional events. I'm going to just read this here. I don't want to see any more faces. Okay. Restlessness. You actually, this one is me. I made a check mark for this one. Kayla may have made check marks for me with the others, but I made a check mark for this one. Restlessness. You actually try to slow down and rest, but you can't relax. You try to take a day off to rest, and you absolutely hate it. You try to read the scriptures, but you find it boring. You go for quiet time, but your brain can't focus. You go to bed early, you switch on the TV and simultaneously checking your email, folding some laundry, and answering other things. That one's, hey, I'm not a hurry, man. I'm in control of this. Workaholism, just non-stop activity. You just don't stop. You can't stop. Your drug of choice is accomplishment and accumulation. These show up in careerism or just obsessive house cleaning, that ain't me, and errand running. The result, you fall prey to fatigue under where does the day go by? You have nothing left to give to your spouse and your children when the day's up. I'm like, baby, I'm too tired. Could we just watch a show? I can't talk right now. I'm tired. You get grouchy and curt, and it's not pretty. That's another one. Emotional numbness. You just don't have any capacity to feel pain or your pain or the pain of others. Empathy is rare. You don't have time for it. You constantly live in feuds. Here's another one. Out of order priorities. You feel disconnected from your identity and your calling. You get stuck in the tyranny of the urgent and not important. You're busier than ever, but still feel you have no time for what matters most. Another one, lack of care for your body. You don't have time for the basics, just a simple 8-hour sleep, daily exercise, a healthy home-cooked meal. Yeah, I've been on like unhealthy home-cooked meals the past couple of weeks. I'm just like, hey, let's get by the fries in the oven. This is great. A healthy home-cooked meal. And I love my wife. She tries to make me healthy meals. I'm like, me and Aaron like, Daddy, can we get some fries? Where is that? Healthy home-cooked meal. Minimal stimulants, margin. You gain weight, get sick many times a year, regularly wake up at night, don't sleep well. You live on the 4 horsemen of the industrialized apocalypse: caffeine, sugar, processed carbs, and alcohol. Oh boy. Oh boy. Escapist behaviors. When we're too tired of what we're actually doing in life and our soul, we turn to distractions like overeating, overdrinking, binge watching Netflix, browsing social media like the scroll doom of death, surfing the web. The scroll, do you guys have the scroll doom of death? That's me, scroll doom. Oh my God, that's terrible. That's terrible. What just happened in the country? That's what happened. Oh my God. The scroll doom of death. Oh, boy. Name your preferred cultural narcotic. Slippage of spiritual disciplines. Don't shame yourself here. If you're in, you get over busy. If you get over busy to the things that are truly life-giving to the soul, the first to go. When you get over busy, things that are truly life-giving to the soul starts going. So you stop giving up your scripture reading, your time of prayer, your time of worship, your time of Sunday, meals with the family. Instead, you decide to settle for Netflix, a cheap glass of wine, which is a poor substitute, because isn't that a big waste of time anyway? Here's the last one. You feel disconnected from God, your own soul, with your friends. Your mind is a million miles away. You're running down a to-do list. If any of those things kind of apply, I try to make it as funny as I could, try to use humor, but that list really super convicted me. Because I realize if we're talking about, hey, we're going to reach a society, we're going to reach a community, we're going to do the work of the kingdom, we may have to slow down a little bit in just a pursuit of many things. Listen, it's okay. One of the challenges that, and Kayla and I, we talked about it in the first 4 years, this is just before we moved into the Encounters model, was, okay, we got to build this, we got to do this for the church, we got to do. And it started to run us so ragged that we started to feel that weight of heaviness. And then when the Encounters model came in, there was a big slowdown. And you know what? Say what you have to say about last year with Corona and how it slowed everything down. That may have been a blessing in disguise for many, because it forced people to say, you will not do that rat race anymore. You will slow down and you will get back to the things that are most important. You know what's interesting about Corona? We know, and nobody in this room will ever say that God made Corona, because God doesn't make sickness. But as a result of that, churches have been forced to say, let's get back to one-on-one discipleship. Let's get back to simple talking, pick up the phone, call Sharon, say, hey, Sharon, how you doing? Instead of waiting for a corporate gathering to have that thing happen. There's a couple of scriptures we'll talk about here before we run out. The first one that I think is really important in this subject area is that Matthew passage where it says, come to me, all you who are burdened, weary and burdened. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon me and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. And you will find rest for your soul, for your yoke is comfortable and my burden is light. That's Jesus making an invitation. Come, all you that are heavy laden. So if you saw Jesus, if you were in first century Israel, ancient Israel, and you saw Jesus for the first time, the first thing you would have probably said is that, that guy's a really smart rabbi. I mean, this guy's a rabbi, he's smart, and he's got it going on. But then what would also you would have noticed is that rabbis of that time, they had something, it was called their yoke, right? It wasn't the yoke of an oxen, right? He wasn't a farmer, but a yoke for a rabbi was actually their methodology on their teaching or their set of operations of how they did things. So Jesus said to the disciples, and Jesus said to the people of his time, take my yoke upon you, because my burden is easy and my yoke is light. In other words, the things that I'm about to say to you, the weight and the heaviness of religion is so heavy. The one that what I'm about to tell you, it's super easy. It's super light. You got one thing to do, just believe. Because as humans, we make such a big deal, and as believers, we make such a big deal of creating religion and creating things in our hearts that Jesus is like, I'm no part of that. Have you ever noticed, and I love this, I say the story all the time because it's so powerful in my mind. In the Garden of Eden, Jesus said, God said to Eve, don't touch the fruit. Don't eat of the fruit. No, I can't remember. Sorry, I can't remember the story. But in that story, Eve basically went a step further than what God originally said. Right? Said, don't touch the fruit. And Eve, in theory, could have just. So Eve went a little further along than he should have gone. So Jesus is saying, hey, take my yoke upon thee, because my burden is easy and my yoke is light. So Jesus would have likely had a lot of people around him, which the Jewish language would call the Talmud, the Talmudim, which are where I think we get the word disciples in the English. I'm not sure, but he would have typically had disciples around him. And then with those disciples, a better way to describe the word disciple is actually the word apprentice. Because an apprentice is one who looks and sees what his senior is doing, and he basically does it. He's following along. And I think that Jesus is not really in the business of making things complicated. He's pretty simple. He's like, go love your neighbor. Right? Now, for us, the things he might say may be complicated, right? Because remember when he was talking to the disciples, the disciples said, Jesus, how many times we should forgive our neighbor? Jesus says, well, 70 times 7. They said, oh, increase our faith. You got to increase our faith in order for us to forgive our neighbor 70 times 7. And Jesus actually didn't do it. He just said, you've got it. Forgive one another. Love one another. Be kind. Be gentle. Like, those things aren't supposed to be hard. That's kind of the basics of the Christian life. And he's saying, hey, you've got rest for your soul, because just take my yoke, take my teachings, take my values, take my mores, take the things that I'm saying to you. And I think if you take his words to heart, it should in theory begin to slow things down completely and take that busy edge off of you. You know, just going back to that subject of the rest part. Jesus' teachings is simple. But have you ever noticed that sometimes you've prayed to ask God for something and he didn't answer it like that? It took time. It took like a nice brisket times length of how God would answer said prayer. That's his way. His way is God's far more interested in the process of building Renee than the outcome of Renee herself. He's far more interested in the process. God wants the process to go through. That's what he's after. Because it is in the working and the details of that process is what changes and transforms our lives. I mean, my wife and I were talking, and I remember years ago, I did a worship set, and I was the only person in the room. I'm up there doing worship. I'm like going, because I think part of that process, what was God building in me? Like, listen, you've got to go for an audience of one. The real audience is me, and the audience is not 1,500 people in a room. And so that's why sometimes when I'm up there worshiping, my eyes are closed. I'm not looking at anyone because I'm really there worshiping my Father. And my hope is that with the songs that I'm singing, you kind of jump on into the same path that we're on. This is a little tiny, but I'll read it nonetheless for you. This is that famous scripture in Luke chapter 10 verse 38. It says, now as they were traveling along, he entered into a village. That was Jesus. And a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. And she said, and she had a sister called Mary, who was also seated where? At the feet of Jesus, and was listening to his word. But Martha was what? Distracted with all of her preparations. And she came up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve for myself? And he tell her to come and help me. But the Lord answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted about many things, but only one thing is necessary. For Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken away from her. Martha was was Martha doing something wrong? I don't think so. No, she was not. I don't think there's anything to say that Martha did something wrong. As a matter of fact, unless Jesus went ahead and he multiplied 5 loaves and 2 fishes, after Mary and Jesus were sitting and talking together, those very same sandwiches that Martha was making, Jesus probably had some. Right? Let's say Jesus didn't have it. I'm pretty sure Martha and Mary had some of those sandwiches that Jesus made. So it wasn't something bad that she was doing. But she had an order of priority. The order has to be, choose to make your encounter with Jesus number one. There's a lot of things that we could do with our daily time. If I tell you the average time that people spend on social media, let me rephrase that. If I tell you the average time that I spend on social media, if I took my social media time and devoted to prayer, we would have revival. I think we would have people blind eyes on deaf ears and stuff if I took that time for prayer. What's important? Let's say I didn't take it for prayer. Let's say I took it just to go sit and have a conversation with my wife and connect. Let's say I take my son outside and run around in our backyard in the sun. It's kind of cold in the pool these days. I've got so much. You see all the excuses I could make for myself? Oh. But the idea is that the encounter with Jesus has to be first place. He says, she went to the Lord and said, Lord, don't you care? Have her come and help me. I'm doing all this stuff here by myself. I'm the only one last prophet in all of Israel. I'm the only one doing X. I'm the only one. Jesus is saying, why don't you come sit by my feet? Why don't you come connect with my heart? Because Mary has chosen the better thing. Mary has chosen not to be distracted with the things of this world. I am not the one I'm not saying you quit your job tomorrow and take up the life of a monk. What I am saying is that I think that God has put enough resources in your life and around you that you really don't have to say, oh my God, where did that go? I mean, let's think about it for a second. When I go running and I see these young guys, these young kids so buffed and all well put together, and I'm like, man, they look pretty good. They're like a walking commercial for Nike. I mean, those are the guys you see on the commercials. And if I say, hey, I want to be like that. But that requires a sacrifice. That requires when I'm eating chicken wings for dinner, they having a celery and water. That requires when I'm up working at 10 o'clock at night, they've gone to bed so they could get up early to run. I mean, their warm-up routine gets me tired. When I see them warm up. I'm tired already. I'm tired just watching that. I mean, I did that. I have the guys on on my beach body. The first day I had the beach body thing, I just watched the routine. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. I just watched people work out. Like, that is awesome. Good for you. Amazing. Oh, somebody else does that too? Just watch people work out? Yeah. Like, that's amazing. Good for you. But you realize that requires a certain level of sacrifice. If I want that, I may have to give up something else. If I want to be a CFO of a major corporation, I know how much my wife will see me. So I've got to decide, you know what? What's that thing that Mary had? What's the thing that Mary was able to do? Go at the feet of Jesus. I mean, if you think about it, and here's a few practical things that I would say, and I may have to do this myself. I may just go back to a paper Bible. You want to know why? Because I'm reading my online Bible. Bing! Notification. Oh, I should address that email right now. That's important. I need to address that. You know what I might actually do too? I might go back to an old school alarm clock. The one that's not my phone. Because you know what tends to happen? My phone's my alarm clock. I grab the phone and I start a scroll of death. I'm like, oh, wait a second. That's right. It's prayer time. So I go and I start worshiping the Lord. And I think, I forgot to tell Ray about something. I need to tell him something. I'm like, wait a second. Okay, no, I'm praying. And I'm worshiping, glorify thy name. What time is my meeting with Marisol today? What time is that meeting again? Wait. Glorify that. It's like my brain is on so much overdrive. Maybe, Kayla, we need to do, I think at this point, after this sense of getting into the presence of God and understanding so much distraction this week, on digital addiction. Maybe we need to do a seminar on digital addiction. Because I think that's killing our generation. And we practice on Aaron first. I'm so glad he's not in this room right now. I'm going to roll here, Ray. Sorry. Genesis chapter 2, day of rest. By the seventh day, God completed his work that he had done and rested in the seventh day from all his work. Then the Lord God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. If you've been in this church any length of times, you know we like kicking legalism in the teeth. Anything that smells or breathes of legalism, we want to have zero part of it. But there is a value to taking time, taking a day and resting. There is a value to that. There's no two ways about that. And here's what I would recommend. So for me, Sunday can't be my day of rest. I'm here at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm locking up at night. We've got a seminar tonight. When I go home, got to check the offering, got to pay the church bills. My day on Sunday doesn't end until it's a complete work day. Right? But take a day of rest that you know you and your family could come rest as a community together. So whether it be a Saturday, rest with your family on a Saturday. Make a decision. We're not taking appointments. The author that I was listening to that got me all fired up about this, they actually have a no phone rule on their rest day. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not ready for a no phone day yet. But the idea is take the time, disconnect. Connect with your Father. Connect with your family. Connect with those that you love. And in that time of connection, you'd see that you slow down that hurry pace that's absolutely killing us and absolutely killing your connection with heaven. So if God blessed it and God sanctified it, it must be a good thing. It must be a good thing. And then I'll just point to my very last point, 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 3. It says, "But I'm afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his trickery, that your minds be led astray from sincere and pure devotion to Christ." One translation calls it that you be moved away from the simplicity of Christ. This is the great apostle Paul. It's kind of weird that he uses language like, I'm afraid, I'm fearful. This was a serious concern for Paul. He got afraid that we would move away from just the basics, just the simplicity. One of the dear communities that we love and we talk a lot about at this church is Bethel Church. And of recent, they had this video that they posted online, and they were talking about this amazing time when they went out in a tent because they're trying to keep everyone safe during this time. So they were out in a tent and they were having a worship set, and they talked about the power and the glory of God came down. They said in the tent it was freezing cold and raining. So imagine being in Northern California where it's freezing and raining in a tent. But they're like, Jesus, we're here for you. Jesus, we love you. And they talked about this richness of the presence of God and the sense of God's glory coming down in a great area and a great dimension. FBI, open up. All right. Don't worry, the enforcer is coming, Veronica, for them. Put the law in them back there. And so one of the things that Chris said is, he said he was reminded of his early days in the gospel. Before anybody knew them, before they were pastoring a church of 100 people out in Weaverville, California, before Bethel Church was the mega 12,000 member church that they are today, they were just a bunch of guys just loving God in the mountains of California. And he said he remembered talking to God and saying, God, I want to hear you. I want to hear your voice. And he said, God said to him, okay, you want to hear my voice? Good. I've got something to say to you. This is what I want you to do. On your way home today, I want you to go pick up all the trash at the Tops Market. He's like, well, God, I'm a businessman in this area. I mean, I don't, me pick up trash. This town has 300 people. I mean, 3,000 people in it. Like, I probably know everyone. This is just one. He says, go pick up the trash on Tops Market. He says, in that market, there were people putting the trash can. It would kind of overflow and it would just get messy. So he drove straight home, and it was time for him and his family to pray over their meal and get ready to eat. And the Lord said to him, I don't want you to say a word to me until you do what I told you. He told the family, hey guys, I forgot something. I'll be right back. He says 5 minutes away from the house. He went over to Tops Market, packed it all in, cleaned up the place. There were people that he knew that was there like, oh, what's up with Chris? Why is he cleaning the garbage can? Oh, okay. Packed it back. The next day he goes to God and said, God, I want to serve you. I want to hear your voice. I want to connect my heart with you. And then he was like waiting for God. He's like, I know God's going to show me a word. He's going to have the President of the United States call me, and I'm going to have a word for him. It's going to be great because I obeyed the voice of God, and it's going to be awesome. Lord said to him, yeah, I want you to go on the highway everywhere that's part of our city limits, and I want you to pick up trash on the entire highway. He's like, but God, tomorrow is Saturday, and Saturday is our big day in the office, and, we've got a lot to do. He owned a parts store, and they owned a garage, a repair garage. So he's like, God, I really can't do that. He said, God, what if I send one of my employees to do it? He's like, I want you. He said Saturday's usually a super busy day. The first he didn't listen. He goes to the office. The first 2 days of him in the office, first 2 hours, not a single customer shows up. 2 hours straight. He told the guy, listen, I got somewhere to go. I'm going to have to leave you here alone. I'll be back. He goes, takes his truck. He's got his company logo on the truck. He starts on the top of the highway. Small little town. He starts picking up trash. People that he knows stops. He said, Chris, did you lose something? No, I'm okay. You want me to help you? No, this got to be done by me. And he's there picking up trash for 8 hours. Now that same man who picked up trash for 8 hours is friends with heads of state. He's friends with senators. He's spoken into the lives of people across the country and across the world, giving them prophetic words about their nation. But it started with the simplicity of listening to God. He says, go pick up trash at your local store. Go pick up trash on the freeway. What's the thing that God has tell you, the simple things that he said for you to do? That you said, God, I don't really want to do that. Because I believe it is when you listen to him, and the simplicity of those things is what really qualifies you to speak in different areas and to speak in different arenas. I honestly believe that my wife and I, when we sat in a church with the only people, young people of our age, and we sat there for 8 years and just listened and plugged in and worshiped and connected, and our services would go from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the evening because of the rich sense of the presence of God. I believe that that was part of the obedience that we had with God, that he says, okay, now I think you're ready to pastor a few people. Because of the obedience of the past. This is not a if you don't do, God will strike you thing. But there is something to say about obedience to God. Obedience to God always brings fruit. Obedience to God always puts you in a place where your life is changed. Let's stand together. I've taken a really long time today. I apologize. But I really felt like I wanted to hit this point. And if you need, I've got, part of my message was inspired by a man named John Comer. He was a gentleman in Portland who was a millennial that his church added 1,000 people for 7 years straight. At the end, he said, I was in a hurry I was angry all the time. He said, I love my wife, but just barely. And then what he actually did, he actually took a demotion from being the lead. They had a bunch of satellite campuses. He says, can I just pastor the one in the inner city? I just want to do that one. You guys figure out the rest of it. He went back to the simplicity of the gospel. He actually has a document. If you're interested, send me an email. I'll forward you this thing to start simplifying life. Talk about getting the clutter out your house. I mean, I got some stuff to toss in my garage when I get home. It's really simple, practical stuff. But I think when we get to that place, God will meet us because there's not that much clutter. So Jesus, we thank you. We praise you. We today make a decision to get back to the simplicity of the gospel. Christ, him crucified, dead, buried, risen again, seated at the right hand of the Father. We go back to the simplicity of saying, hey, how you doing? The simplicity of loving our neighbor. The simplicity of telling someone, hey, Jesus loves you. The simplicity of saying, God bless you. The simplicity of the secret things that we would do when we see someone walk into church with their shoe with a hole in it. We just go buy another pair of shoes for them. We see someone that has issue. We have the mercy part of our lives just ignite in us. We just say, let's just bless them. Let's just bless people. Not so that we could have a testimony, hey, I just blessed such and such today, but just so that our right hand not know what our left hand is doing. And so I pray that we as a people would not be a people of hurry, but we'll be a people with simple devotion to Christ. And I pray as leaders, you would help us along this journey. In Jesus' name. So let's just do one exercise. I know it's late, but I'm going to watch the clock for you for 2 minutes. And in that 2 minutes, this is going to be a time of ministry. Focus on Jesus. If something else comes and distracts you, push it out. But you focus on Jesus for 2 minutes. Jesus may inspire you with a great idea. Try to remember it. But try to make the focus of the next 2 minutes Jesus. That's part of what we're talking about, of the simplicity of connecting with Him. Marisol, Thelma, Davie, if you want to come forward. If you need prayer, this team will be happy to pray with you. Zoom audience, it was great to have you on.